Hey guys, Louie News here. So today I'm going to be doing a character analysis on Ruruka, and I know it might seem a bit random since before I talked about doing either a Hajime or a Sanya analysis, but I was just crazy busy with work this week, and doing an analysis on one of those characters would have taken a while, and it seemed like this was a pretty highly requested character as well, so I figured I might as well do it because, I don't know, I think it'll be an interesting one. But before I get on with the video, there are a couple of news updates. So if you haven't heard, V3 is officially going to be on Steam and it will release on September 26th. Also, the Danganronpa VR for the US did release already, and the Western European version will release on March 10th. And finally, before I start the video, I do want to do some shameless self-promotion of myself and mention that I did recently do a live stream on Twitch playing 999, and I'll be posting a highlight video of that soon on my main channel. But if you want to watch the full live stream, it is on Twitch, and I also created a second YouTube channel that will just host my Twitch archive if you guys ever want to go back and watch my live streams and Twitch is just not working for you. But with all of that out of the way, I will stop rambling, and without further ado, let's go ahead and get on with the analysis. So unlike most Danganronpa characters I've analyzed, there's not really anything known regarding Ruruka's home life, so I'm going to skip this section and go straight into the analysis. So the earliest event in Ruruka's life we see in Danganronpa 3 is when she meets Seiko for the first time. This, of course, being after Seiko attempts to revive two dogs who were hit by a car. One dog survived while the other one passed away. Something notable about this scene is that we see how different Seiko and Ruruka's reactions are to the dog's fate. Seiko mourning the dog's death, while Ruruka doesn't acknowledge the dog's death or empathize with Seiko at all, even though it's obvious she's upset. She only focuses on how amazing it is that Seiko brought the other dog back to life. So something I noticed was that it appears that Ruruka either lacks or chooses not to empathize whatsoever with Seiko. I decided to do a bit of research to see what a lack of empathy could mean about her character, and online it said that it's closely related to something called narcissistic personality disorder. And after looking through all the characteristics of the disorder, I'm pretty positive it can be applied to Ruruka. For the purpose of time, I'll just name 3 right here, but if you want to look at the list of characteristics and compare for yourself, I'll list it along with all the other sources used in the video in the description. Number 1 is has a grandiose sense of self-importance and exaggerates achievements and talents. Expects to be recognized as superior without commensurate achievements, along with using others to achieve her own ends. 2. Has a sense of entitlement, i.e. unreasonable expectations of especially favorable treatment or automatic compliance with his or her expectations. And 3 is requires excessive admiration. This last one can be seen mostly with her relationship with Seiko, since we see how much it hurt her that Seiko wouldn't acknowledge her talent, and because of this, Ruruka felt that she was lacking the admiration she deserves. I do plan on talking about most of these scenes and characteristics in further detail in a bit. Right now, I'm just trying to show evidence as to why I think she has narcissistic personality disorder. But moving on, I do want to start with how I believe she views herself. Being as self-involved as she is, you would assume that she would think very highly of herself, but I believe it's the exact opposite. I believe that she actually thinks very poorly about herself and that her insecurities are what cause her to act the way she does. So let me explain. There's an analogy I found online that describes people with narcissistic personality disorder having an emotional bucket filled with holes. And I think this analogy can perfectly describe Ruruka and how she acts to prevent herself from facing her own insecurities. We constantly see her seeking power, one example being how in Future Side it's revealed that she wanted to create her own faction outside of the Future Foundation. She even threatened Seiko at one point into killing Munakata since she considered him to be the true leader of the Future Foundation. She also appears to be pretty paranoid about Izuyoi betraying her as well in the Killing Game, since in most of the scenes together she's either expressing how she hopes he'll never betray her, or she's trying to feed him some of her sweets. But getting back on topic, I believe that she needs to constantly gain more power, more admiration, and surround herself with people that will affirm she's worth trusting because she doesn't actually believe this about herself. But not only this, I also believe she's created this idealistic, perfect version of herself in her own mind that she longs to be, and bases her own worth, or this version of herself's worth, on the approval of others. But like a bucket full of holes, all the admiration, the power, the success will only satisfy her and convince her that she's important, loved, etc. for a short period of time before the bucket's drained again and she has to seek out more. This can be a confusing idea to explain, so I'll try to give an example. So Ruruka's normal self is insecure and believes that the only thing she knows how to do well is make sweets. But she wants to be this super version of herself that has power, someone who loves and protects her, is constantly praised for her talents, and is smarter and above everyone else. So she's always trying to convince herself that she is this super version of herself by gaining all of these things. And for some time she's able to convince herself of this because we do see her look down on others, etc. But because she has that emotional bucket full of holes, she has to constantly seek out affirmation that she is this better version, or her insecurities will begin to pop up. And since she only believes that she is this greater version of herself based off of what others say, it's very easy for her confidence to be lost. So something that backs up this idea is that after Izuyoi's death and her failed attempt at killing Kirigiri and taking advantage of Juzo, she begins trying to convince herself that killing Izuyoi was the right idea, even though you can see it in her face that she regrets it deeply. She wasn't right in betraying Izuyoi, just as she wasn't right for how she treated Seiko after what happened in Despair Side, but since Izuyoi was there to tell her that the whole thing was Seiko's fault, implying that she did nothing wrong, she was immediately able to push the blame onto Seiko for what happened. It can be noted that Izuyoi was the first one to accuse Seiko of betraying Ruruka. Before he says anything, Ruruka acts very timid and scared, showing that she probably blamed herself for what happened before Izuyoi affirmed that she did nothing wrong. This shows to me that she has to have that affirmation from others. She can't convince herself of anything by herself because, again, I don't think she likes herself very much and is a very insecure person. So I have a feeling if her plan to manipulate Juzo would have worked, she could have deluded herself that she was right for killing Izuyoi for way longer. But since nobody else was there to tell her that she did nothing wrong, she had to try and convince herself of it, and you can see she does a pretty bad job. Next, I do want to talk about her relationship with Seiko, since their relationship does seem to bring out her insecurities the most. As I mentioned in my episode review a while back, Ruruka mentions that Seiko was her hero because she could do anything she asked, and because of this she trusted her. But over time she began to grow jealous, mentioning that she feels that making sweets is all she knows how to do. And because Seiko refused to try her sweets and acknowledge that, she may have felt that Seiko looked down on her and her talent. And going back to the holy bucket theory, she needs that constant affirmation from others to survive and keep this ideal version of herself alive. I think that being around Seiko became really hard for her over time because Seiko made her feel all the bad emotions and insecurities she's been trying so hard to repress. It's implied that Seiko was someone she really looked up to, and I think that although she was initially using her for her talent, she did care about Seiko in her own way. So Seiko not acknowledging her talent was probably a huge blow to her ego. I also believe it's possible that Ruruka constantly asked Seiko to come up with these new medicines as a way to test her, since as mentioned before, Ruruka believes that making sweets is all she's good for, and that Seiko can do anything. So in her mind, Ruruka probably wonders why Seiko hasn't tried to make a medicine that would allow her to try Ruruka's sweets, since she believes that Seiko can come up with anything. You can see in the flashbacks that at first she was excited when Seiko would make her chapstick and other things, but over the course of time, Seiko continued to make anything she wanted, but since she never offered to come up with something that would allow her to try Ruruka's candy, you can see Ruruka get progressively more and more annoyed with each successful request. The show makes it pretty obvious that being betrayed is a huge fear for her. I think this fear did start with what we saw happen happened between her and Seiko in Despair Side. I believe it was so terrifying for her because, as mentioned before, I do think that she had this very idealistic, perfect version of herself in her mind that she's always trying to live up to. So firstly, I believe this betrayal was scary for her because it completely destroys that self-image, since she was suspected to be involved with a bomb threat and also giving laxatives to teachers in front of everyone, as well as she got expelled from Hope's Peak Academy, which we know is a huge deal since it's said that going there sets you up for a future of success. Secondly, I think this was hard for her because, as mentioned before, I think she really did care about Seiko and their friendship in her own way. I think that she bases her relationships on how the other person makes her feel, and I think that Seiko being someone she could trust made her feel safe knowing that Seiko always had her back. So I think she was really upset to have lost this relationship with someone that she felt like she really looked up to and could always trust, even with all the hostility she had built up. It did appear to me that once this trust was broken and she was betrayed, she did become a bit paranoid about her relationship with Izuyoi as well, specifically during the killing game when he stopped eating her candy. And I think she did become paranoid because she believed that she deserved to be betrayed by Seiko, and not because Seiko was a terrible person as she so claimed. Instead, I believe that she thinks Seiko purposefully betrayed her because she had finally come to the conclusion that Ruruka had been using her and mistreating her all these years. And even though this wasn't the case and the whole thing was an accident, that's what I think that Ruruka believes. So I think she blames herself for the friendship ending deep down inside. And I'll come back to this idea in just one second. There's a popular theory that Ruruka was using her candy to manipulate Izuyoi into being her ally/boyfriend. And I do believe this to a certain extent, but not exactly at the same time. My theory is that when they met, they were kids, and Izuyoi's first impression of her was that she made delicious sweets. So the relationship started based off of that, but then over the course of time, he began to love her as a person. But since Ruruka is so insecure, she believed deep down inside that he really stayed around for her sweets and not her, which is why she feeds them to him so often, to keep him around. So when the killing game began and he could no longer eat her sweets, I think she grew insecure that he would leave her and realized that all she's good at is making sweets, as she so says about herself. I think she was already paranoid after noticing he wouldn't eat her candy anymore, but I think her paranoia about him leaving her skyrocketed after they found the secret exit. Since she believed that Seiko betrayed her because she came to the conclusion that Ruruka was mistreating her as a friend, I think she believed that Izuyoi would betray her by coming to the conclusion that he only loved her candy and not her. Of course, we learn in the end that he didn't feel this way at all, and that not only her betraying him was a mistake, but that she didn't need to manipulate him with her sweets all along since he really did love her. Another reason I believe this is the case is because writing-wise, this idea would just make sense to me. I think the whole purpose thematically of this subplot was to push the idea that you need to trust your friends in order to overcome obstacles. And her killing him on purpose because of her paranoia and realizing in that moment that she didn't need to manipulate him with her candy all along seems the most impactful to me to get this theme across. It pushes the idea home that if Ruruka would have just trusted both of her friends in the first place, then everything could have worked out in the end. But since she always needed more admiration and affirmation from them to help with her own insecurities, it ended up leading to all of their downfalls. But this is just my idea on it. Let me know if you have any of your own. And with that concludes the analysis portion of this video, so let's go ahead and move on into the trivia. As per usual, I will be going to the Wikia page for her trivia. So her given name Ruruka means outpouring song, and her last name ANDO consists of the word peace and wisteria. The wisteria part of her name could refer to her eye color, which is a light purple. Ruruka's suicide has a striking resemblance to that of Nagito's death in the killing school trip. She stabs her legs repeatedly, and her body is laid out in a similar way to Nagito's. Ruruka's death was oddly enough never acknowledged by the survivors of the killing game. It was referenced when Makoto discusses the presence of monitors at all the suicide scenes, meaning her corpse must have been found However, no one is shown reacting to her death on screen. It is possible that she attempted to use her talent to save herself from the suicide video by attempting to overpower it with her mind-altering sweets, which could be why she was surrounded by them. However, due to the amount in her mouth, it is possible she choked herself on them while committing suicide, resulting in a subconjunctival hemorrhage, shown by the redness of her eyes. But there it is, guys. That will conclude this video. I hope you enjoyed. Let me know if you have any theories of your own regarding Ruruka, if you agree or disagree with mine. I will be honest and say that I don't think this is my best analysis video. I had a ton of problems with this video, you guys, like so many problems, and that's why it's almost a week late, but I hope you guys enjoyed regardless. There's a couple of theory posts I'll link in the description that I also read, and some of the theory posts I had read and they had very similar ideas to mine, and then other parts they had totally different ideas and theories compared to mine, so if you're a nerd like me and you enjoy reading theories and stuff, I'll link those if you want to read them. But like I said before, I hope you guys enjoyed, and I will see you real soon.
Subscribe to Weeby News for more hope-filled videos.